everyone. Welcome to Amazing Plantz4mationz. And I have an amazing guest. I feel like I use the word amazing a lot, right? Angela Crawford is here with me, and I apologize we're a few minutes late coming on. That was totally my fault. Welcome, Mariquita Solis, vegan empowerment coach and harmonic earth healer, and Boomer and Beyond Wellness, Angela Fischetti, our awesome friend who does so much work. Check out their channels. And my guest today is Angela Crawford. I'll just read a quick bio. I know most of you probably know who she is, but she's passionate about the benefits of a vegan lifestyle for emotional, mental, and physical well-being, compassion for all sentient beings, and caring for the planet. She recently researched and wrote the book, The Vegan Transformation, A Journey to Heal Yourself and the World, which I'm so excited about. She became vegetarian over 17 years ago when a TV program awakened her regarding the harm to animals and humans caused by meat production. She continued to read and learn about the devastating impacts of animal agriculture on animals, human health, and the planet, leading her to adopt a fully vegan lifestyle in 2019. And she now brings her psychology background to educate and empower others. Dr. Crawford writes a blog, as a YouTube channel, and offers educational programs focused on thriving emotionally with a plant-powered vegan lifestyle. She holds certification in plant-based nutrition and a master vegan lifestyle coach and educator certification, transformational coach, and she has a doctorate in clinical psychology and previously worked for 25 years as a psychotherapist. And that's why you can see I'm so excited that she blessed our little small channel here with her presence. So thank you for joining. How are you?
I'm great and so excited to be back here. You and I spoke a year ago and of course have kind of known each other through different groups we're in and online. So I'm so happy to be back with you, JJ.
Thank you. I really, really enjoyed, and I think everyone else did, our last conversation. And I wrote this in the post on, Instagram and Facebook. But this is so special to me because I also have a degree in psychology. Obviously, you have a lot of more experience and everything, but I've always been interested in how this. Especially, I've been vegan since 2019, also, and I'm like the main thing that really, um, has intrigued me is what happened in my mind to shift that whole way of thinking from before I was 42 to after, and how this all came about and how it continues to unfold. So I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about your book. And I know we talked about the book. You did a lot of research, and we even had a meeting talking about my journey too. So can you tell us, though, for those who didn't see our last interview, which I will link here, but could you tell us a little bit about just how you initially went vegetarian and then when it switched to vegan?
Sure. Yeah, it's always so interesting to reflect on our stories because I think over time we come to understand even more than we did even when it happened. But, for me, the vegetarian piece started when I just happened to come across a program on PBS that featured a segment about workers in a meat processing plant. And these workers were being featured because they were having these severe injuries because of the nature of their work. And then their employer, the meat processing, companies, were trying to discourage them from, I'm going to take a sip here.
Yes.
From seeking treatment or taking time off work. Like they're doing this really dangerous, repetitive work that's causing damage, and yet they're being kind of pushed to keep working through it, or they might lose their job. And many of them were immigrants, some undocumented, some just here, because this is where they live now. And but yet they, didn't often feel like they had other financial choices. And so it just got me thinking about how my food got to me for the first time. I grew up in the Midwest, but somehow I just saw the cows in the field that seemed peaceful. I really didn't have a good understanding of what animal agriculture was really about. And I think seeing that program started to get me realizing kind of the injustice in it, for humans. And then I very quickly realized, well, like if I don't like how the animals are treated or the humans are treated, what do I think about what happens to the animals? And so, the very next day I went and bought a plant-based cookbook and made my first recipe, which was a vegetarian lasagna, which was kind of complicated,
Right.
but I was just like, and I was not a cook. I mean, I think that's an important thing is like, I was not a healthy eater. I did not like to cook. I just felt overwhelmed by thinking about what to eat most of the time. And so I ate what was convenient and comforting and tasted good. And, so it could have been microwave meals or sometimes just even like I'd be lazy at dinner time and just have cheese and crackers or something, it just like I really was not. And I loved chocolate, I still do, but now it's healthier chocolate, darker chocolate. Regardless, I was not a healthy eater. So buying this cookbook and creating a recipe was sort of a big step for me. And I really actually loved it. I loved the colors. It was an artichoke and red pepper and spinach lasagna with all these beautiful colors. And I
Nice.
served it to my then husband or then boyfriend, now husband, and his family, and they all liked it. And it just set me on a journey. The cookbook, I think, had a little something about some books you might want to read more about if you wanted to learn more about a plant-based or vegetarian lifestyle. I quickly was reading all the books in my library. And what I discovered just like horrified me. And, I read, Diet for a New America by John Robbins and, just so many of these other books about what happens to animals and the health impacts, the ethical impacts of what we eat. And I gradually realized I just needed to, I knew I wanted to move towards being vegetarian. I wasn't quite ready to think vegan, but at least start by leaving meat off the plate. And that made a huge change for me. I think my health journey is much different than it would have been if I hadn't started that path, all those years ago, back in late 2006. And then, as I kept reading and learning, I knew pretty early on that moving towards vegan was the better thing to do, both for my health and for ethical reasons. But it took a while to put that into practice. I will say social reasons were the biggest deterrent for
Mhm.
me. Like, how do I fit in at family events? It was a big enough thing, that I'd learned to say I'm not eating meat. And then I got to where that was not a big thing anymore. It was just like, I just do not eat meat. But now, okay, I have to add in this other thing. Okay, I'm not eating these other foods that have dairy in them that,
Right. What they were probably preparing you when you were
yeah,
vegetarian. It's like you take
yeah,
it to a new level.
exactly. So it
Yes.
just took like, I think it was inner growth that led me to be ready to take that, where I had been working on old patterns. I was in a transformational coaching program at the time. I was still working as a psychotherapist, but I just had taken this transformational coaching program through a program called Feminine Power. And it was about really connecting with your inner self and your inner truth. And I think that gave me the courage to say, hey, my truth here is that I need to honor my values and work through whatever blocks I have here and get over this people pleasing thing,
Yeah.
that I didn't even realize I had, but it came to the forefront when I was trying to be different than everyone around me based on my values. So I just finally in 2019, it's like, this is the time. I just something awoke in me. I made myself watch some videos and read some books that really highlighted like what happens in the dairy and egg industries. Watching a few of those videos of a mother cow chasing after her calf being taken away,
I will do it.
and, I'd also found I'd been decreasing dairy and I felt much better without it. I didn't have seasonal allergies. I didn't have certain skin issues that I'd been having. I just felt better. So 2019 was the year. 6 months later, I went to Main Street Vegan Academy, which I absolutely loved, because I wanted to find a way, how do I bring my veganism together with my, my
Mhm.
passion for making a difference and helping people. So that was one step on the journey. And I keep growing and learning since, and I guess just that passion for like, how do I bring what I'm good at, psychology, and what I have experience in, together with helping people both awaken to veganism as well as to thrive once they are vegan. Because, I'm not sure the percentages, but there's a high percentage of people that try to be vegan and then for whatever reasons don't sustain it. And
Hmm.
often social and emotional challenges are key parts of that. So I thought maybe there's ways I can help with that as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true because I think, and I was just really reflecting on this a lot lately when we were talking about, once I thought about it, it's like, I think most of us want to do something. That's not what stops us sometimes. Like we know the right thing to do, or we know the right diet to eat, or we know ethically this is the choice we want to make. But what is it that holds us back? And usually it's either, like you said, it's fear of social situations, fear of change. It's like a lot of things are not necessarily that we don't know what to eat. There is a huge need for that, of course, to know what to eat, like you said, with the cookbooks and what to eat. But really, a lot of that transformation for me, like the mental spiritual transformation, was the big thing. And I love that you married your two kind of, passions there. You were, had all this experience in that field, and you were able to bring that to us to, to really help people thrive and stay on a vegan diet. And that's an amazing, journey. So I'm so happy for you, and that, that evolution of becoming vegan and aligning with it. Yeah, it's like there's so many social things. You brought that point up too, that get involved in it. And thank you, Carl, for being here. And um, Boomer and Beyond said that she's honored to share with the YouTube my story included in Angela's upcoming book. That is awesome. And Diana Varner, thank you for being here. She has awesome channel too. And Carl, thank you. He said he's honored to meet you, and he follows you on Facebook. And it's very important what you stand for. I totally, totally agree. I love her work. And is that so? Then you were vegan in 2019. You started to feel like you had the certifications. Is that when you started thinking about writing the book, or did that come a little bit later?
Yeah, I'd had a vision for a book for a while, but I just somehow I wasn't clear on what exactly the topic was. And when I became vegan, I knew that, okay, the topic relates to this. I knew it was going to be interviewing people because I was a journalism major before I switched to psychology about midway through college. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'd always loved writing, and I loved, I did research in psychology and in journalism of interviewing people. I just have always loved how people's stories, illustrate different themes, that are important to us as humans. So I knew it would involve interviewing people. And then when I became vegan, I knew it was going to be about veganism. I just knew that was what I had been waiting for, was that passion, that something that just really I knew I wanted to stand for.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know exactly the details. It took about 2 years after that I started the research. I started it in spring of 2021. I created a survey. And so both Mariquita and Angela Fischetti were part of my research. They were both people who did the survey and did interviews. I ended up surveying about 350 vegans, I would say, like that filled out a brief, maybe 10-minute survey to fill out that asked about like, how has being vegan affected your life emotionally, socially, and spiritually? And first, like the positives, what are all the positive changes that have happened as a result of being vegan? And then there were a couple questions about, okay, what were the challenges? And then also, how did you cope with those challenges? So kind of the idea that, there can be challenges, but most of the people I interviewed or surveyed had found ways to deal with those over time, and so
Mhm.
I wanted to learn from their wisdom of, well, what did you do?
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really good idea. Like I've seen only one other, and I'm sure there might be more, but I think it's a really innovative idea because the way that we learn is, hey, let's talk to a bunch of people who've done it successfully. So like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. And knowing and learning, like probably it was really cool for you to find what are all the similarities that they
Yes.
all
Like,
have
what were the
in
core themes that came out, in terms
common.
of benefits, and then what were the core themes that came out in terms of challenges and coping with challenges? So I would say the book is more about the benefits because I feel like that is something missing out there in terms of like, okay, there's a lot of books out there about the health benefits,
Mhm.
and I do touch on that because there is a chapter about health empowerment, but I don't think there's as much out there about like how do we psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually benefit when we align with our values, when we open our compassion, and when we eat foods that are aligned with that and also nourish our body because the same things in our brain, because the same things that nourish our body also nourish our brain. So that's going to help us emotionally too. So kind of all of those things I kind of wanted to capture, through the research and stuff. So that's kind of the focus, and there were seven core like principles of transformation that kind of came through that I share in the book. So
Oh, okay, that is amazing. And so if I know we'll get to this later when
Mhm.
we talk about your links and everything, but if we wanted to purchase it, it's available right now.
It is available for pre-order. Like it will not
Pre-order,
actually be
okay.
out until early next year. Like I think they said March or April. So the whole publishing process is long. It's in the process right now of being formatted, and it's all written. It's been edited now, and now the publisher is formatting it and all that. So it'll be, but it is. You can look it up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, maybe other places too. I don't know. I just mainly know those two, and it is available for pre-order. And I will say, when we get the links up later, I have said too that if anyone does pre-order it, I'm planning to have a class like next year that's free for anyone that pre-orders it that lets me know. So basically the class would be about some of these principles, how we can thrive as vegans emotionally and spiritually, and be more impactful, in our message, because if we're doing well, then we're going to be able to help others more effectively if we're thriving as vegans versus if we're stuck in distress or despair about what's going on. That's a normal feeling, but if we stay stuck there, it's harder for us to do well ourselves or to help others. So I also will say too, in terms of anyone that pre-orders, one, I do thank you for it. I see that Mariquita said she did, and I do appreciate that because apparently the numbers for pre-ordering play a role in it being higher on the Amazon listings or whatever. So pre-orders and orders that are early in the process, they do help. So thank you, anybody that does that, and if you want to be part of this kind of free class for the pre-orders, there will be a way to contact me when we get to the end with the links and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, I'm going to definitely pre-order. And
Yay.
Lee, actually, this is an interesting time for him to come in. Welcome. That's okay. The replay will be up. But I wanted to say he also has a book club that he hosts, I know.
Oh,
So I think this would be a great one for your group if it's something that fits in or aligns with that.
definitely. I love that. I mean, it definitely, I think, is a book that lends itself to discussion because there's reflective questions and exercises at the end of every chapter. So,
Oh, really? Oh, that's neat. And I guess we can't really. I know we don't want to tell everybody like everything in the entire book. Would
but I
it
can I can
be
tell some.
also okay? So I didn't know how far to go, but what is one of the principles? Just to give us an example, if you don't mind. Like you don't have to go in depth, but like, what is
Sure.
one of the things that you discovered?
Well, I think the two grounding principles no one would be surprised at because that they were, first of all, aligning with our values and extending compassion to all beings. What I found surprising, though, was like take the aligning with values. That was the core transformation. Like that was the foundational one that made everything else possible. And you'd think like, okay, that's obvious, but how much it came up for people as being life changing that they were now aligned with their values. It can, because I think most of us have compassion for animals as a value and compassion for all beings and maybe health. These are values probably most of us share, wanting our planet to be healthy, not wanting to hurt other sentient beings. So we all share those values, and yet only about 3% of the global population are vegan,
Mhm.
so it's like,
Very big disconnect of that.
exactly. And, I'm a compassionate person. Why did it take till I was 40 to like even become vegetarian? Like
Yeah.
I was cut off from like awareness about what happens to animals. It's not like the
I
information
was
wouldn't have
looking
been
at
out
that
there.
timeline that doesn't even, you look about 40 right this minute, and you're telling us you were vegetarian at 40. See, that diet is working, right?
Thank you.
I,
Yeah, it's
so
now
that's
been
what I
17
wanted.
years. I hate to say it, but it's true.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
it's
bring
just
up.
it definitely has changed my life. And so the people I interviewed, like aligning with their values and finding peace from that, and like a weight lifted that they didn't even know was there. That was like the foundational transformation. And so I really share in one of my chapters about values and why they matter, and why, sometimes we're blocked in this kind of cognitive dissonance of not making that connection, and especially when it comes to animals and, what we do to them in animal agriculture and other industries. So that was like the foundational one. And then kind of related to that was compassion. Again, many of us are compassionate, and my reading and research showed that we're biologically wired towards compassion, and yet we still can compartmentalize our compassion where we don't extend it to everybody, whether it be humans that are different from us or animals that are, we only care about certain species of animals,
Mhm.
and so just again, in those chapters, trying to kind of challenge all of us to like look at our values and our compassion, and where are we like blocked,
Mhm.
where are we not living by our values, where are we not extending compassion, um, and from those, like all these other things came, like a sense of purpose, which I
Mhm.
see in you, JJ, and all, Angela, Mariquitas, and, I'm sure many of the others in the chat that I might not, know, that their life has been changed. They now have this sense of purpose and urgency to make a difference. And,
Mhm.
many of us have changed our work or added in volunteer work on top of our regular day job, as I know you and others do. Um, and there were other ones like, a big one was this authentic fulfillment. Like, a lot of times people are trying to be happy. Well, being vegan doesn't necessarily make you happy. So it's not about being happy all the time. You might be happy at moments. You might feel peaceful
Mhm.
about your choice, but authentic fulfillment goes deeper than just feeling good. It's about like embracing the fullness of our humanity, which has ups and downs and good feelings and tough feelings. Because when you're looking at the world, how can you not have tough feelings sometimes, But it's like embracing all of that, learning how to navigate the tough emotions. Like, I think a lot of times why we cut off from the harm to animals is we don't want to feel the feelings. Well, you have to be able to kind of witness and allow those feelings. So so the people I interviewed reported this kind of authentic fulfillment and well-being that wasn't always happy, but was this deeper fulfillment that goes beyond that, this kind of sense of meaning and purpose, and a
Mhm.
sense of like what I'm doing matters, and I feel a peace associated with that. And alongside that, those that ate more whole plant foods, I would say went even further with that authentic fulfillment, because I think it nourished their brain in a way that like helped
Mhm.
maybe give resilience.
Mhm.
I myself, love all kinds of foods, and I'm not a perfect eater. But I did find from research into nutrition that the more, people eat whole plant foods, especially like fruits and vegetables, that nourishes the brains and our neurotransmitters. So
Mhm.
it's just this added fuel, for this journey of being a compassionate vegan in the world, if we're also nourishing our own body and
Be
brain.
compassionate to ourselves, also, in a sense.
Exactly. Like that was it. Like remembering we too are sentient beings that have limits and needs. And so, including that in our care, having a very whole food, plant-based, at least whole food, plant strong approach to our veganism, where
Mhm.
we're getting lots of whole plant foods in there, and getting, our B12 and other nutrients that we need, vitamin B12. But yeah, so people that I interviewed that were more plant whole food, in their veganism, they did find some benefit from that. Like they noted, like when they'd eaten maybe a less healthy version of a vegan diet, that maybe they didn't feel quite as good as they did when they ate more whole foods in their diet. So I throw that in there because as compassionate vegans, sometimes we forget to include ourselves. And
That's true. That
I
is very true.
found that that was really important. And I would say one other transformation that I'll mention that's kind of lined into all this is there was a spiritual kind of transformation. Whether someone identified as spiritual or not, I'm going to label it that because it was about this sense of interconnectedness. Like I didn't even think to ask, like, do you feel more connected to all of life? But that came up again and again in people's responses. Like I feel like I see that I am interconnected with all of nature and all beings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And so yeah, like that insight. And some of the people I interviewed just really embodied that like we're connected to nature. If we don't care for nature and all its beings, we're also hurting ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just like that. And people found like a great peace from that awareness. But I think we're blocked from it if we're eating animals. So
Definitely, yeah. And
yeah.
I think one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I totally forgot, I guess we started talking about something else I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about your transformational approach or how you became vegetarian and then vegan at first. You mentioned something that I don't hear a lot of people mention is that you saw the video or the documentary about the actual workers in the meat plant, and that was able to connect your compassion that you had for humans based on, I think, also probably just being a compassionate human, but also your background in psychotherapy and things
Mhm.
to help understand, like, wow, that must really, and then it led you to understanding what happened with animals, which I find is really interesting that as many people as I've known, I haven't. I find that finally came across that later on. I didn't even put it together at first. It was all, for me
Yeah.
it was diet, and then it was about animals, and then I realized the actual conditions of the environments they're working, especially during the pandemic. I think that brought it to a lot of light for a lot of us too.
Yes, when we saw that, they were forced to work even though people were sick with, COVID and, spreading it to other workers. And yeah, I would just say like on my journey to becoming vegan, I made myself read the book Slaughterhouse, which is written by a journalist, Gail Eisnitz, who interviewed workers in slaughterhouses. And I mean, what came out of it was the horrific conditions for animals, but it was also clear, like, it's no work that most of us would ever want to do. And it really takes a toll emotionally, psychologically,
Hmm.
and physically on the workers. And I would also add, like, the conditions that they work in are so unsanitary. Like, it's amazing to me, like, people don't also kind of get more, like, kind of grossed out by that reality. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's,
But we are blinded to it because we're not
yeah.
allowed to really see it, or we don't allow ourselves to want to think about it.
Exactly. It's like, no, I have to eat this. So, like I think
Yeah.
it's just, Melanie Joy, says that, part of how meat eating continues is there's this message that we all get is that we have, eating meat is natural, normal, and necessary. That's what we're taught.
Hmm.
So we don't question it.
Hmm. That's so true. At a young age, we are
Yeah, it's
prepared
just
to tell.
indoctrinated into us so young, from every message we get from our authority figures of our life, our parents, the government, doctors, the
Mhm.
media, meat industry, advertising, and lobbying.
Yeah, and we wonder why it's only 3% when we look at all that we're up against, basically. And I find that it's a sense of fulfillment that we all want to put this information out there once we figure it out. But we're met with a lot of resistance, to your point, especially
Yes.
all that. Now that you've mentioned all those things, what are your thoughts on, at least for the people you interviewed? Like, do you, because I struggle with this in my sharing of information, like, is it something like those things that make us feel bad? Like if we were to show slaughterhouse, or like sometimes I don't want to ever put out things that make people feel bad because I'm also compassionate towards people, if that makes sense. Like the different ways we put out the message, I would assume that makes a difference. But for most people, did they become vegan that you interviewed just like or did you
Mm,
find a lot of people found something that disturbed them made them vegan, or it was more positive unfolding of everything?
yeah. Wow. I think bye, Angela. I'm so glad you joined us.
Thank
Um,
you, Angela. Appreciate you.
um, I think there were a mixture of reasons. And, there was probably, first of all, I do know that, probably 85% said that compassion for animals was a primary reason. But there was a certain percentage that health was also a predominant reason for
Mhm.
why they did it. And and when they told me their stories, because I did ask everyone I interviewed their story of why they became vegan, it really varied. Sometimes it was something disturbing they learned, and other times it was more to make a positive change. As we're talking, I'm thinking of like one story, for example, that one of my interviewees shared, that she happened to come across something that I had never heard of, which were called window cows, where like there was something cut into their sides so that their microbiome could be used to
Hi.
feed to help other cows that were dairy cows that didn't have a healthy microbiome anymore. And like she saw these cows with this hole cut in their side where they were accessing the cow's microbiome. And I just, when she described that to me, it just broke my heart. But that was her turning point to become vegan, when she learned, like, okay, this industry does this, like I'm not
Right. Do I want
I'm
to
not going to
do
be part of it. Like, but that's something that's not well known to most of us. I had to Google it and search it and see, like, yeah, there is, actually a term for it. Like, it's a cannulated or fistulated cow. I
Mhm.
just had never even known that ever
I
happened.
didn't
Like,
even know that either now.
there's so many things that we don't know about. So there were things like that, but there were,
Hmm.
what I will say though, when we're trying to inspire others, um, you know, I think we each have our own path. And what I found with interviewing people, like there's a whole chapter on purpose. Like there were so many different purposes that people had found. Some was to wake people up to what happens with animals, and for others it was a more positive message. Just finding that fit their personality and their style of communicating
Hmm.
better. So we each like serve a purpose. Like I have come to feel like there are some vegans that just feel called to be more out there in a very activist way, and they serve a purpose that like I personally would not be very good at.
Right.
But
Right.
they can get out there and speak it, and they might be part of certain groups, like that maybe show videos or
Mhm.
witness to certain things, or post online about certain things. I
To
think
make
that's
a
needed
difference.
because some people that is going to be the thing that moves them and changes
Yep.
them. For others of us, though, like, we might share those things now and then when it feels like aligned. Like maybe someone we're talking to is expressing something that shows that they're kind of curious. And then we might
Hmm.
be like, can I share you some information with you? And then they're willing. But I think springing it on people in our life when they haven't asked for it probably will backfire most of the time, because people
Hmm.
put up their defenses when we just throw information at them that they're not ready for, or especially something disturbing. So I think it's like for the people in our lives that we're connecting with and we have relationships with, it's better to meet people where they are and see, from my take anyway, what really interests them, or
Hmm.
where they're at on their journey. And like if they're more on a health journey, like, okay, start there, share what's going to help them with their health. If they are curious about the animals, then share like your own journey, what you discovered, and like align with them rather than go against them. Kind of like, because most of us, unless we were raised vegan, we weren't
You
born
weren't
that
vegan.
way. For most of us, we had to discover it, and
Hmm.
we had our awakening. So if we can share our own journey, the other person feels less like we're so different from them,
Hmm.
but more like, okay, I felt that same way too. I thought I could never give up cheese, but then I learned this, that, or the other thing, and it kind of showed me that I didn't need it and that I felt so much better without it. And also I learned what happens in that industry, and I just didn't want to support it anymore.
That
You know,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think it for us doesn't happen all at once. There are those that, but probably even if you think it happened all at once, there were little I think I made a post the other day about layers, there were
yes,
things you just popped up and saw that might have triggered something, but you didn't want to go all the way there, or like,
exactly. Like I think like most of us, you're saying it exactly right. We've had seeds planted. Like I realized that I had some seeds before becoming vegetarian. Like just that earlier that year, I'd eaten at a conference that had all plant-based foods.
I remember you mentioning that last.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, well, this is really good." Well, I wonder if I hadn't done that, would I have been as open? Because I think like knowing something is possible makes you more open to learning more. And that's why I think, those of us that feel called sometimes to share food and cooking and health and recipes, that's a huge help because when people feel the why, the how is possible, they're more open to learning the why piece of it.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense because that could be their resistance, as they wouldn't know
Yes.
how to do it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't know what to eat. How often have we all heard that?
Exactly. And let's face it, food is a big part of our life. We can't just not make decisions there, and often we're going to go with what's convenient and what's
Hmm.
familiar because we're overwhelmed or, with other things in life. So just really, yes, like you're right. There are seeds planted probably for most of us, even the people that seemed to do it overnight.
Hmm. That is true. It's like it's an amazing thing. What you've done is taken all of that information and kind of, I'm sure it was a lot to organize and sort through to write this book. So I'm so excited to read it and to, and to really listen to everything that you did, all that hard work and research. Because I remember you were like right in the heat of it last time we were
Yes,
on
I
last year.
was. Yeah.
When did you actually start the research or come up with the idea again? Like, how long did this take to prepare?
Yeah, it's an interesting process. So yeah, 2021 was when spring 2021, I started sending out, I created the survey and started sending it out. And I connected with different plant-based groups to try to find, I didn't have a big following, so trying to like connect with some online groups on LinkedIn and Facebook to sort of send it out to. So I had some people really support me there to get, some outreach to get people to fill out the survey. And then I followed up with interviews with about 75 of those 350 people that filled out the survey. And the interviews were about an hour long. And, as I mentioned, both Mariquita, who is here, and Angela Fischetti, who is here, were both people I interviewed. And there were many others. And
I think I
um,
actually met with you too. At least I don't know. It might have not been for quote unquote
yeah, we
the
did talk. I think it was like kind of after I'd already done
yeah.
that part, but I'm just so fascinated by people's stories of how
Mhm.
they became vegan and how it's changed their life that I know we did
Yeah.
talk about it. And your story fit into what the themes and the trends I was discovering. So yeah, then once I interviewed everyone, so all of that probably took about a year and a half,
Mhm.
the surveys and interviews, and
Look
I
at all
was
this work she put into this book, guys. Go pre-order that right now.
and I was working full time at the time too, and so then I kind of compiled it into what were the themes, just kind of like by looking at the different, both the open-ended responses they filled out, as well as there were some questions that were like tabulated, like, check
Mhm.
off which ones apply and seeing, which ones were the most common. So I compiled that into what were the themes. And then I worked a little bit through a self-paced book coaching program with Matali. I, I'm not very good at pronouncing her last name.
I know who she is.
I can't quite say it, but she was
Yeah.
really wonderful. She had a self-paced like coaching program, like where you could, follow kind of a process to help you with organizing your book. And
Mhm.
that helped a lot because it helped me think through an outline. And like, I
Mhm.
actually, one of the things it suggested was writing a really detailed outline and then dictating chapters and then using the transcription to help you get a rough first draft, and that actually helped a bit. I wasn't very good at it, but at least it got me started. Whereas I think if I was staring at a blank piece of paper, it would have been
Yeah.
hard. So I did that. And, the writing process was slow, I would say, until last fall when I only had 6 months left, because I did get a publisher and I had a deadline of February this year, 2024. So last fall, I had retired from my psychotherapy practice and I just dived in like full steam and got it into the publisher. And, it was intense. I'm hoping if I write another book, it will feel less intense than this did. It was very intense, but
or maybe they all are just as intense.
yes, who knows? But yes, it felt good. And each, kind of what I tried to capture was, why did each theme matter in the bigger picture? What does the research say about each of these things, like values and compassion and purpose and all of these different variables that I looked at? And then how did they show up for the people I interviewed? Like I shared some stories that illustrate, and some quotes that illustrate certain themes, and kind of then, like I mentioned, some exercises. Where does this fit in your life? How can, even if you're already vegan, like how can you feel even more fulfilled and impactful on your own vegan journey? And if you're not vegan but are curious, hopefully it'll move you along that path to feel more like, hey, this is something positive. It's not depriving. I'm actually going to be a better version of myself,
Yeah.
So
I think that's what it is so amazing about. I feel like it's going to be a transformational book, literally, even though it has transformation in the title for a lot of people. So thank you for all that hard work and putting it together, and getting it kind of pieced in a way that people can read and understand what kind of all of us, with the especially with the different sample of people you got, it sounds like we all have this same path in one way or another. We might have came across it differently, discovered it at different ages and things like that, but it seems that what you're finding is there's a lot of things that align between everybody that makes this discovery.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And sort of, so many people, I mean, I think you've probably heard this, JJ, too, is just like, the biggest regret I have is I wish I'd done this sooner. It's not like that I regret that I've made this choice.
Yeah.
I wish I'd made it sooner. And, there were a few people that filled out the survey that were having more struggles, and so that's why I did include, some chapters that also get to like, okay, well, what seems to help us so that we do thrive emotionally? Because sometimes when we learn about what happens to animals,
Hmm.
it's emotionally devastating, like kind of why don't others see it or seem to care about it? We get
Hmm.
really upset, and that's a phase that's understandable that we might feel that. And then how do we handle social challenges where we're eating differently than everyone around us? I think that's really
That's a big
important.
challenge.
So, so I think, that there were a couple chapters after I get through the positive transformation part of it to like, okay, well, now you're on this path. How do you change your lifestyle in a way that's sustainable? And how do you handle these emotional and social kind of things that can come up when you're living differently? You're a forerunner for a positive movement, and so when you're a forerunner, you got to like learn new things. Yeah, you can't just look at everyone around you. You're kind of having to learn a new path. And
Yeah. And did this kind of help you as far as like, well, there's two questions I had, but one is, did this help you in seeing those struggles? Like, does this help you to maybe come up with themes for other books or ways for your blog and things to help people because of their struggles? And
yeah, yeah, I think so. Like I have so much content. I should like be much better about writing my blog, and I'm hoping to get into more of a rhythm with that again. It felt like for a while there I was just kind of caught up with everything with the book, and it seemed like things went by the wayside. But now it's time to start sharing like snippets of what I learned from that research, leading up to the book. And
yeah, well, take it
so
easy for a minute, though. We know you had to work for years and years,
yes,
right? Enjoy
definitely.
the feeling of being done with it, right? At least. for that.
Yes, exactly. To celebrate that. I mean, there are some pieces that'll come up leading up to it, but yes, the work, the hard work of that is done. And then the next part will be sharing it, like actually going to like veg fests and other places
Yeah.
to share about it. Um,
And you can take me with you to all those. I'll carry all the books.
oh, that's
Like a
awesome.
caddy, right? I'll just
Yes, that's right. I love it.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's awesome, and I think this is the fun part for all of us is getting to that knew about it a little bit ahead of time and knew it was coming is to really be able to put it out there because it's such important work. Which is why as soon as I saw that it was in the works or done, I was like, can you come on and talk about it again
I'm
because
so
we.
glad you did. I love to share about it and to share that, it is healthy for us psychologically as well as physically, even if it is sometimes not easy to be that forerunner. I do believe in time there will be more of a tipping point where more and more people will see the benefits and it won't
Mhm.
feel quite as challenging as it can for some people now. But even so, if you take good care of yourself while you're doing this, like in terms of nutrition, exercise, just overall self-care, like having balance in your life, like, yes, pursue this, but also don't forget to take care of you,
Mhm.
like fun, this is fun sometimes, but, enjoying nature. Like sometimes I have to remind myself when I get kind of worked up about things, like, why do I care about this? Well, I care because I want a beautiful planet that's healthy and
Yeah.
a world that is compassionate and where all beings can flourish. And so I try to connect with nature sometimes to remind me why it even matters, and to renourish myself. So remember to take care of you. But when you do this alignment with your values and honoring that inner voice that's guiding you on this path, like that's one of the healthiest and most fulfilling ways to live.
I would say too, like as some people that have maybe like met their absolute soulmate and they said, "Oh, you know what? That's I felt finally like this is where I'm supposed to be," or found that job
Mhm.
or whatever it
Mhm.
is that makes you feel that way. Like I think for a
Mhm.
lot of us, that's where it happened. We were all over even in our
Mhm.
career, we're like, yeah, I'm happy to be helping people, but it's not. And then when you find this alignment, it's like, oh, that's where I was supposed to be.
Yeah. For you, when you made that connection, like what did you see in this vegan path that just felt so aligned for you?
I really feel like for me it was like a unfold. Like I never thought that I'd be on YouTube talking about it when I first like discovered it. Really, it was for me just like, oh, this is so cool. I never heard about any of this, and then it was like diving deeper into this pond of information that was like so like where have I been? Like I don't know this, so now I have to tell other people. It was started with health, and then I found out about in the vegan groups the animals, what happened. Then it became even bigger than me. I was like, wait, okay, so now I have to tell people this because all these animals are being abused, and I never connected that this animal and this, like, what is that called, in your professional opinion, when we're blocking, like we don't make that, is it disconnect or compartmentalization when we say this animal's to eat, this animal's to love, and we don't connect it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. And I mean, and if you were going to use, I mean, that's an easy way to describe it is it is a sense of disconnection and compartmentalization. And like some of the labels that have been attached to that, one is speciesism, where we, kind of care about some species of animals while not really giving that same care and compassion to others. And of course, Dr. Melanie Joy's coined the term carnism to describe this kind of mental conditioning we have that some animals are food and others are to be cared about, and it's just sort of wired into us so much that we don't even start to question it. Like, well, why
Mhm.
is that? Why this animal and not that animal? Why is it this way?
Looking back at my life, like if I see a video or I look back at a holiday or whatever, like in like it's almost like you're looking at a different person's through a different lens now, or looking at life through a different lens. Like I'm like, wow, I was just so disconnected then. I didn't even know. I didn't even put it together. Like we're sitting around Thanksgiving and we have this, animal on the table. But that's how I look at it now. But then it just looked like that's what we're supposed to do. And it's almost hard to like remember your thinking then, how it was so disconnected. Once it's like how that big shift happens. And it's not, but I don't find I was incompassionate. Like that's why I think it's important that we bring people into this, like you talk about meeting them where they are, because like I was a nice person.
Mhm.
We can't also go around thinking, oh, everybody's disconnected and mean because they're eating animals, because that's not always the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think I've learned sort of maybe a sense of humility that, like, as much as, like, we like to think, like, when I first became vegetarian and then, even vegan, I was kind of like, "Yeah, like, why don't people get it?" Frustrated sometimes. It just took me a while to slow down and, like, by reading Dr. Melanie Joy's research about why we love dogs, eat pigs, and wear cows, and reading other stuff, I just started to have a little bit more compassion and humility that, like, you know what, I didn't awaken to this right away. Well, why is that? And really starting to understand, like, again, we humans are such social creatures. And as much as we like to think we're individualists, we tend to follow the norms around us. I put norms in parentheses because norms are socially created. It doesn't necessarily mean what's healthy. It just means what everyone is doing. And some things that we did in the past are clearly, we recognize they were normative at the time, but that doesn't mean that they were okay.
Hmm.
So just having, I guess, more compassion and, like, how do we bring people along on this journey, and what has helped other social justice movements and health movements take hold, that over time, it wasn't usually shaming someone. People shut down when they feel like you're attacking them.
Yeah.
um, they're not going to hear you because they're so busy protecting themselves, because we're so wired to protect ourselves from feeling shamed or attacked. So yeah, it's like, how do we inspire their curiosity? How do we start to awaken that compassion and curiosity in them, where they might start to question things a little more?
And that's where I think I know it happens over a period of time when we've watched other social changes, like wake up calls, I guess you would call it, and how
Mhm.
things slowly change. But also, I think there's such a need for what you do. And I've said this to you before, because I think that's where it's missing, is where we really need to figure out how do we get in people's mind and help them make that connection, more so than a ton of other things. All of it is important, because we need all of it when we're becoming vegan. We need to know what to eat, we need to know what to do, but we need to also have that curiosity to even make the difference, so how can we sustain it after we're there and deal with the struggles, so people don't come in and out of it, even though they might align with it.
Yeah.
There's something that makes them go the other way sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's important that you're looking at that aspect of it. So thank you for that. And I know that we want to wrap up here soon. I'm going to keep you a little bit over if you have another few seconds, or if you have
Sure.
anything right away. I had one more question just to ask you. What was there anything that surprised you, as far as like when you were writing the book, what that you wouldn't have imagined that people said, or was it pretty aligned with what your journey too?
Um, there were things certainly that, surprised me, and that maybe I hadn't understood the depth of them, but I think just a lot of things inspired me.
Hmm.
So it inspired me that values really do matter, and that even if we've been disconnected, like you mentioned, the old family gatherings where you ate meat, and same for me, like, even if we've been disconnected, when we reconnect with our values and truly live by them the best we can, and obviously we're continuing to learn and grow there, that makes a huge difference. Seeing that whole interconnectedness piece come out, like, I don't know, like, for me personally, like, how did I move from someone who thought it was just too much of a headache to even cook or prepare a meal to someone that looked forward to it because it was a part of something I now valued? Well, I think for me, it was partly because I realized how interconnected everything was. Like before, like healthy eating didn't make sense to me. I just didn't understand. I got all these mixed messages of what do you eat to be healthy? When all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it was like, oh, I don't want to eat animals. And wow, it turns out that is healthy too. And wow,
Right.
I later found out that's good for the planet. Like everything connected somehow. Like
Mm-hmm.
it became easy. And maybe not always easy, but I was willing to overcome whatever challenges there were because like everything's somehow connected now.
Yeah, that
So
makes a lot
that,
of sense.
yeah, that really came through, and I didn't really ask that question, but that just came through. And I think I was also inspired by the health transformations that people shared and how that led, like so many times they were told like, oh, this isn't treatable or heal, you have to take meds the rest of your life. And then people that wasn't happening anymore, they took charge of their health again.
Mm-hmm. Taking
Um,
that control back of your health and how what you're eating, because you're right, food is so important. We don't realize, and that's like the beginning. It's there's a lot more to veganism. We know over time we discover, but in the beginning, the biggest change is what we're eating, and that we don't even realize how big a part of our life I feel like food is until we eat differently than everyone else. Then you really
yeah.
discover it, because you're right. Everything people usually connect over food, so it's definitely a big thing. But that sense of purpose, that's interesting. That is, not just a small portion of us, but a lot of us, when we figure it out, that's good to know that there are others who feel that too.
Yeah, I actually include in my book like a chart of like all the different ways people were serving their purpose through veganism in such varied ways, that fell under like athletics and fitness, health and healing, animal advocacy, environmental advocacy, being like a coach for others to help them on their journeys, being a business coach, and helping vegan businesses, just so many different ways that people were bringing their gifts, to serve their passion. And so I think like that is a real key is like, you don't have to be like other vegan advocates or entrepreneurs. Be you and figure out who you are with your gifts, your interests, your skills, your
Mhm.
experience, how you can bring those forward for what you care about. And you know
That's really cool. And like other people I've spoken to too, that might, like you said, not everybody wants to come online and make a video or put it out there. Maybe it's just, sharing other people's videos, or maybe it's not
Mhm.
sharing anything and just being a good example for your family and your community of this is what I do, and sharing that, being yourself can be an example. But like I think it's so interesting what you just mentioned, because you got me thinking about all the different ways that people, even in this community we're in, like Angela, who's helping us with our fitness training and
Yeah.
whole food plant based, and Marakita connecting us with earth and
Mhm.
that type of healing thing. And just hi Ellen, thank you for
Yes.
welcome. And Ellen, you
Yes. Ellen, who brings her gifts, and
you
I know.
know, just the way that we present it to the world, and you with your, amazing psychological, background and psychology, and also your writing and putting it out there to the world, and YouTube and all kinds of things you're doing. And it's like, all of these things collectively are making a difference, whether we really feel that sometimes or not, because like you said, we're living in a world that we're trying to change and help people evolve, but it is making a difference.
And I saw, by the way, that you had written an ebook that you're sharing with people, which I thought was really awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think it was just in inspiring me. There's a longer, book that even we talked about, that I've been working on about my journey, but it really just inspired me, because I was like, I don't think I knew what the word vegan meant even. I didn't know what it
Mhm.
was, and I think a lot of friends even that probably see my content, when they see the word vegan, they just scroll past it real fast, because it kind of sometimes holds for people that that
Mhm.
putting that in their face that, oh, I shouldn't be eating animals, but I'm getting ready to eat a burger, so I don't want to see this. But I'm like, maybe if I tell people what it is, and explain it from my perspective of, this is what vegan is, this is what vegans eat, this is the different diets, that might help people with that how.
Yeah, I love that. And Muriel, I love what she says. We're making a difference, small or large.
Yes, and Muriel is making a difference too. She's got her page, and it's just I'm so blessed to know all of these people who are doing all these little things. It's a great community to be part of, and you are so inspiring. I was thinking, Angela, just when you were talking about the timeline of this, like you have made such an impact. You have have taken on the Facebook page. You're at different where were you just? You were at a conference, I think.
Yeah,
You're doing so
yeah.
much in that little bit of time. You really made a big mark and helped so many people. I know I was part of a class that you hosted, just so many things. So, congratulations on your success.
Well, thank you. And yes, like Marakita had invited me to be the co-moderator with her of the Empowered Vegans Facebook group. And some of you might already be in that, but those of you that are vegan and like want a positive space, like I definitely encourage you to join us there. Um, I do have a YouTube channel, the Vegan Transformation, where I share interviews with vegans who have transformed their lives, and some of it is to share the transformation of a vegan lifestyle, similar to what I share in my book, and some of it is just to like support us in thriving emotionally and socially on that vegan path.
Hmm.
Yep. And then I have a blog, that I'm trying to be more regular with, and and also social media, of course. Like I was always an introvert and not really on social media, but having a book coming out, I have to like be more willing to be out there. And so yeah, I have spoken at some events and stuff. I just like to share the intersection between psychology and veganism, which I know you're passionate about too, and just
Yeah.
how we can thrive on that journey wherever we're at, whether we're just starting to consider it or whether you're further along on it and just need to include caring for you in that process. So
So we've got, and then so the blog and the YouTube, and then we've got, of course, the book, which is we can go on Amazon, and we have links in the description to all of this, and also in the comments, I'll even pull the link for the book out since that's what we
that's
talked
great.
about. Put it in
That's
the comments.
awesome. And I'll be speaking more about it as it gets closer for sure, wanting to share about it. And yeah, and probably creating some classes too, some might be in my local community that are more for those that are veg curious, and then others will be online. Like Marakita and I might be doing a class together about, kind of the thriving socially piece. How do we handle social situations as a vegan? So how do we handle those family conversations that are stressful? So definitely keep an eye out. We'll post about that in the Empowered Vegans group. So
I love the group. Definitely, everybody join the Empowered Vegans group, and also let's pre-order that book. Let's make this vegan book the bestseller this year. What do you think?
uh,
Let's do it, or this
yeah.
coming year.
Well, thank you. Thanks for
I
your
forgot we're coming
support.
at the end of the year, aren't we?
I
Um,
know the year's going fast.
Thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate you and this entire conversation. It's been really, really valuable to me and inspirational. So thank you.
Well, thanks for all you do, JJ. You're an inspiration to me.
Is there anything last that you want to say? Oh, thank you, everybody. Let me say that first before you say your last words here or ending words. Thank
Well,
you,
thanks for
everyone.
everybody that's here now and that will listen later. And yeah, just I guess, for those that are considering the vegan journey, just that it is worth it, and on so many levels, and there's support out there for you. So find that support, because I think the support is key to thriving with a vegan lifestyle. And if you're already vegan, keep getting that support, because that's what just helps you to stay positive and fulfilled as you're serving your mission and living in this peaceful, compassionate way. And thanks, Carl, for that feedback. This
Thank
is fun for
you.
us too.
Thank you,
you.
Carl, for being here, and Muriel and Marakita and Angela. I know you had to go, but thank you. And like Ellen, thank you for popping in. I don't know if you saw her comment. It was funny. In
Yeah.
58 or 50 minutes, right? Oh, yes. I love the journey too. It's amazing. And I really appreciate all your time. I know we ran over. And thank you for sharing your transformation book. And thank you for sharing your amazing transformation with us too. We appreciate
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.